welcome everybody. Thanks for attending. This is going to be kind of a comparison of BIM 360 docs and Autodesk docs, as well as for those that may be new to the platform, kind of some basics of what you get with BIM 360 docs and Autodesk docs. So as Ashley mentioned, by all means, put some comments or questions in the chat, and I will take some time at the end and we'll go through those. And I can go back and show you a few things if we need to. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get started. So some of you have probably already heard of BIM 360, but I guess there's probably some people who may not be familiar with Autodesk docs. Both of these fall under the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So as I go through a little bit later and show you, I'll point out how they've kind of branded this all under the Construction Cloud umbrella. And we have two different platforms, the BIM 360 docs and the Autodesk docs. The primary reason for the addition of docs to this umbrella is the ability to fully integrate products that Autodesk has purchased over the last few years. A couple of these products, or actually most of these products, already were integrated with BIM 360, but it wasn't a seamless integration. And some were only available for the construction side. So Autodesk is currently working on how to fully integrate those products all under that ACC umbrella. So they'll work with both applications. If you're currently a BIM 360 user, you've probably already noticed some changes in the BIM 360 user interface as it takes on more and more of the characteristics of the Autodesk docs, which will be the next generation. Once all those new products are fully integrated, Autodesk does plan to provide a tool for users to migrate existing BIM 360 projects into docs. However, we have been told that there are no plans to retire BIM 360 platform, and it's continuing to be developed. Although this presentation is geared towards how project members can leverage a few key features in docs, I thought it would be helpful to have some context for those that might be new to the Autodesk Cloud environment. When a company purchases Autodesk docs, they own an ACC account, and then the admin has access to that account. The admins will determine which common data environment they'll use, the Autodesk docs or the BIM 360 docs, or it could be both. And then the project admins will invite, once they determine what hub the project will be on, they can create those projects. And then once those projects are created, the project admins then will invite folks to those projects. Members that are invited to a project can only see the projects that they are a member of. And then once invited to a project, the admin will provide permissions to specific folders. So depending on your permission to a folder, you might be able to view, upload, download, markup, or even open a file in another application, be it AutoCAD, Revit, Civil, or even Office. So both Autodesk docs and BIM 360 docs, as I mentioned, are that common data environment. You can choose which one you're going to use. They're included with the subscription of the AEC collection, the BIM Collaborate, and the BIM Collaborate Pro, as well as you can purchase it as an individual product as Autodesk docs. There's two main differences when we navigate in BIM 360 docs and Autodesk docs common data environment. The BIM 360 docs has the dark blue banner at the top and has tabs that run horizontally under the banner. And then Autodesk docs is the lighter color and has a banner with tabs that are placed on the left. As far as the modules, selector to change modules, we'll be looking at the docs module here in a little bit. And then you'll see it's the same process in both applications to switch modules. And then to switch projects really hasn't changed either, other than the color of the banner. There are other minor differences that we'll take a look at, like some of the icons are slightly different, but as time goes by, we expect that those will become more closely aligned. So as I mentioned, both docs applications are the repositories for your projects in the cloud under one of those common data environments. As a CDE, it becomes the single source of truth for all the project documents. This eliminates multiple versions of files on multiple servers, hard drives, and multiple cloud storage devices. With the automatic versioning, we can trust that the document being viewed is the latest and most current version. Project members can share, view, markup, and manage project drawings, documents, and models, allowing easy yet controlled transfer of information between the project members. Today we'll take a look at a couple of these features: the viewing in 2D and 3D, comparing versions of a model, and also working in red lines. And while we look at each one of these features, I will show you the differences between the two applications as well, for those that are looking at working in both or migrating from one to the other. So for the docs viewing, although most models are available, although most tools are available in both products, as I mentioned, the symbols may look slightly different and be in different locations. There are still a few things that Autodesk Docs does not yet have, such as controlling the display of markups and issues, as well as redlining in a 3D view. So as you can see here, the list of tools are similar, but the order and icons are slightly different. The available tools will also depend on the type of file. For example, a PDF will not have tools such as viewpoints and model browser. We'll take a look at the items in blue today. Some of the tools that are at the bottom of the screen, let me go back for just a second here. So I don't think I mentioned that these are on the left-hand side of the BIM viewer when we go into it here in a minute. These here are on the bottom of the BIM viewer. And again, you can see that they are a little bit different. There have been a few tools you can see here in Docs. It's a little bit shorter on the 3D viewer than on BIM 360 Docs. Some of these tools, like the model browser, have actually been moved over to the left-hand panel. So again, the symbol changed a little bit the way it looks, and it's moved on another part of the screen, but it still is there. If a tool is grayed out, this will indicate that it's not available in that view for some reason. So as an example, here in Docs, this is grayed out because we're in a 2D view. We don't have sectioning analysis in a 2D view. And the compare button is also moved, as we see here in Docs, but I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later when we look at the compare option. So I noted a couple of them, the model browser and the layer manager. These are specifically for different views, but they also have been relocated for Docs to that left-hand panel that we just looked at instead of the bottom panel. All right, so let's just pop over here to the web browser. So here I have BIM 360 Docs. There's our blue panel, our tools that are horizontal, and then here is our Docs. Okay, and so our tools are here. You can expand this out. I'm going to go ahead and close that up or minimize that just so we can see this a little bit better. This is the same files, but in different projects. So here's my project selector here. So this is my Quick Start 1, and this one is my Quick Start 5 in BIM 360. You can denote what hub you're on too by this little B, whereas on the dock, the little world-looking symbol or sphere. So let's take a look at viewing each one of these. So if I select on a 2D view or 2D file, I can open that up in the BIM viewer. I've got my tools on the left here. We've got our sheets and views. So it'll list those different sheets and views, and I can toggle between however many layouts, in this case, I might have for an AutoCAD file, or if I just want to look at the model on a 2D view. And then here I've got layers. If I want to control the layers, maybe we want to turn off those dimensions. I can quickly toggle on and off different layers. This is not going to apply here. This is going to be more for Navisworks or 3D views. Our model browser, again, it's gives us some tools, but it's not going to give you the tools you might expect in a 3D model browser. But here we have, this is an AutoCAD file. We've got blocks and hatches. If we wanted to turn off all the blocks, hatches, and so forth, we can do that. If we want to look at the markups we might have, here's a list of the different markups, and we'll come back and take a look at this as well. And then if we have any issues in this project, we can see those here as well. Okay, so if we want to navigate around and take a look and control the view, we can do that. So let's pop over to BIM 360 and we open up a file here as well. So you'll see in this 2D view, I've got just a few options here in the 2D. Again, some of those tools that were down here have been moved over in docs, so we don't see them on the left-hand side. So here's our markups again, if we want to see our markups, our issues, our sheets. And this has our history on it. This one here, I just have one version, but if I had multiple versions, I could then see those different versions and when they were uploaded and who uploaded them. If we come back over to docs, I can do the same thing, but I do have to come up to the top here and I can see those different versions. It does tell me when it was uploaded and by who. Okay, so very similar, a few differences. Let's take a look down along the bottom here. So you'll see we've got our panning and our zooming, our zoom to fit. For most of us that have been working in an Autodesk product for a long time, we're used to using our wheel. It works fine in here. You can use your pan, you can use your zoom. The mini map will keep track of where you are within the model. You can use it to zoom. It takes up a lot of real estate, so you can always close it out. If you want a little bit more control over your zooming or panning or window selection, you can come over and choose either the zoom or the window, and we can come in and we can zoom into a specific area if we want. We can use our zoom tool that will allow us to control the view with our left mouse button instead of the wheel. But this is the only thing you can do right now with the left button. You can switch to your wheel and go back if you want. And then we have zoom to fit. So that'll zoom us back out to the extent of that view. Let me zoom in here again. Let's do a little measure. We've got a measure tool here. We can come in and measure between objects. If you want to, you can set what the measurement units are. So if you don't want that to be in decimal, you can swap that out to something else. Now those dimensions do not stay. They are just for reference. So if we wanted to do another one, we can do that, and now we have feet and inches. Now there's a variety of different dimension tools available down here if you would like. Calibrate comes into play typically when we're using a PDF so that we can measure a distance and then key in what that value should be so that we can calibrate the view. For AutoCAD files and Revit files, that's not necessary. Once you hit done, that dimension goes away. Now we can add a dimension with a red line if we want it to be stored with that view. And we'll look at that here a little bit later with red line. Hiding markups and issues is an option in Docs that is not yet an option in Autodesk Docs. It's only in BIM 360 Docs. And let's go, we'll take a look at the rest of these here before I swap back over. Our settings, I don't typically change these a lot. I might change the background appearance on a 3D view. If you have trouble with a video card, maybe you want to turn some of these things off so it isn't such a resource on your computer, but it's in the cloud. It really doesn't seem to have much effect except for maybe a 3D view if you've got an image in the background or something like that. Our properties, if we want to get the properties of an object, we can select on an object and it'll tell us the properties of that object. So folks that maybe aren't in the software all the time or they're in a meeting, they can still get the same kind of information you would get from an AutoCAD file or a Revit file, depending on what you've got open, to the properties. And then here we have the layer manager. This is the same thing that we looked at over in Autodesk Docs, but it's down at the bottom of the screen instead of on the left-hand side. And then our last button here is our full screen button. If we take a look at Docs, you'll see that, again, we've got our pan, we've got our zoom to fit, we've got our zoom window and our zoom option, we've got our measure option, we've got the same settings, properties, and extent. And again, I'm not in a 3D view, so this one is grayed out. This one, I think, is because of the version of the file. It's not active right now. All right, let's, I think we've covered everything there. Let's close this and let's take a quick look at a 3D model. Actually, let me leave that 2D up. I think I've got a 3D open over here for us. All right, so now in BIM 360, we can see we have a few more controls over here. We've got our markup and our issues and our sheets. In our sheets this time, we can look at 2D and 3D sheets. So if this 3D model was published with both 2D and 3D sheets, we can toggle between those, and we can open any of those up that we might want. Over on the left, we've got our history. So if I want to see the history of this model and when it's been uploaded and by who. If there's phases in the project, we can see the phases. And then here we have levels. So if we want to isolate the levels, I'm already in the ground floor, so let's go to lower level. Okay, and that's a toggle as well. And then down along the bottom here, we have similar tools that we had before, so our panning and zooming and so forth. We also have a first-person avatar. If you want to open him up, you can double-click and walk through the building, and he'll move to where you click. We've got some orbiting tools. We still have our measure. And then we have our sectioning analysis that's now active. So if I take a look at this, I can section this model in a variety of different ways, either with a cube, the Z, Y, or X axis. So if I wanted to, I could further clip this and drag this to take a closer look at what's going on. We can rotate this around, and we can rotate it up and down. When you're done, just click it again to turn it off. Okay. We'll come back to these with the compare a little bit later. We've got our model browser, our properties, settings, and then full screen. The model browser is basically setting up much like we did the layers for AutoCAD, but here we've got our model browser. We can turn off certain components. We want to turn off all of our curtain walls. To toggle again all of our walls, we can do that. So let's take a quick look over at Docs. You'll see, again, pretty similar to what we had before. got our sectioning tool, we've got our measure tool, and so forth. The main difference here is our model browser is now over on the left-hand side. All right, let's switch back to our PowerPoint. So the location of the compare is different between the applications. I pointed out in Docs that it's down here with the move and display settings. In Docs, they've moved it up to the top near the search bar and the closeout button for the BIM viewer. When we initiate the compare, we can select the view and the version that we want to compare. And once we select the compare button, we can look at that a couple of different ways. So in this case, for a 2D compare, we can look at it as an overlay that we see here, where I've got the old and the new overlaid on top of one another. And then I can also have it side by side, and I can compare those side by side as well. If you want, you can add markups and so forth here. To exit, you select the little exit button, and that will take you back to the BIM viewer. Now, in a 3D file, you activate the compare tool the same way, but once you're in compare mode, you'll see you get a little bit more information about what's going on in your model. So here I can see I've got a display of the different items that have been modified, added, or removed. If I have multiple disciplines, I can toggle on and off the disciplines and hide an entire discipline with just one click. I can search. When you click in the search button, you can either type in something specific, or it'll bring up a grid, a bubble of different groups of things that you might want to filter by. You can select an item that is being compared and see the properties between the two different versions, and we'll take a look at that as well. There is also a side-by-side view for 3D viewing as well. I don't find it as useful, but it's there if it's something that's helpful for your team. All right, let's swap over to the compare. Bring back up the web page. All right, so on the compare tool, we can go through, and this one's, let me compare this one first. So I'm in Docs, so my compare tool is going to be up here on the right. And I can compare the two different versions of this. Now I could change these views if I wanted to. It just makes it a little bit easier if you already are in that view. And so I can see I've got two walls that have been modified, very basic. I click on one of these, I can see the change. So if I click on one of them and then the other, I can see the change from one version to the other. I can also see that it moved slightly, like it was rotated, and then I can exit it. Let's go over to BIM 360 and let's take a look at the compare there. I've got this one set up a little bit more to look at. So here, if we zoom in, you can see that I've modified, I've added a few things. If I don't want to see the modified or the added elements, I can just simply toggle those off. So any elements that were added would be turned off, removed, and so forth. So you can toggle those depending on the look that you want to get, that narrow down that search. Now, if I wanted to take a look here, again, I could turn off disciplines, but in this case, I really just have the structure and architecture. But if I had an MEP, I could turn off all MEP elements. If I wanted to search further, you'll see that it automatically categorizes the objects in that list. I can narrow it down even further. Instead of just walls, maybe I want to narrow it down by basic walls. I can type that in. Well, let's say I just want to look at the doors. So I can further filter that down to the doors. If I select one of those doors, it'll show me what the differences are between the two versions. Now let's pick on one of these walls here. If I pick on one of the walls, you'll see that there's quite a bit more information here. If I want to see the difference, it looks like it moves slightly. So if we look at the move, it says 2 inches. So it may have moved 2 inches, or maybe the size changed. In this case, I know that the size of that wall changed. So it went from a 5-inch to a 9.5-inch wall. So a lot of information that you can cull from this the compare tool when you're looking at what's been going on in the project. Okay. Oh, you know what? I did not. Let's go over to our 2D. I did not show you on our 2D view. Let's do a quick compare here on the 2D view. Oh, this is this is our one that has one version. That's not going to help as much. So let's come over. This one's got 2 versions. We've got something to compare. Go up to my compare. So when I zoom in here on my 2D compare, you can see I've got the 2 different colors. So my blue is version 1. So my text wasn't aligned real well for those rooms. And on 2, I've corrected that. If I want, I can turn off the current version and look at the previous version, or vice versa. And then if you want, you can switch that to side by side. A little hard to see, but you can tell if I move this little slider over, there's my room tag from the previous version and then the current version. So with the yellow, it's a little harder to see, but depending on what you're working with, it works really well with a PDF, but you can use either option, the overlay or side by side. So in Docs, Autodesk Docs compare's been moved up here, and BIM 360 Docs, that one's still running. In BIM 360 Docs, it's still down. It's down at the bottom here. All right, let's take a look at. Let's move that along. Let's take a look at creating markups. Again, similar to what we talked about before, a little different color, a little different look to the symbols. Most things are available. You'll see there's a little bit of differences in some of the tools. Some have flyout, some don't. The Autodesk Docs does provide for a markup tool or a highlighter, which is kind of nice. Both provide an option for adjusting the text size, the color, the thickness of the line weights, and so forth. When you're working with Autodesk Docs, you do have, with BIM 360 Docs, you do have to click Save Markup to finish the markup. However, with Autodesk Docs, when you pick outside of the markup itself, it finishes that markup. Both will allow you to go back and edit them. If you need to go in and edit, make adjustments to the text or the cloud, depending on what you've created. When you create a markup initially, it is a private markup. That means that only you and the project admin can see those markups. But you do have an option to publish those markups so that other folks that have access to this file can view those markups. Once you publish a markup, let me go ahead and go to the next slide here and show you. So we can create a publish either while editing it or on the sidebar here. We can publish those. This is Docs. On Autodesk Docs, we can publish it by editing that tag, that markup, or there's a panel on the right-hand side that allows us to publish. And so a little bit different, but you know, they both are basically the same. You're publishing it to other folks versus just it being a private markup for you. Once a markup is created, you can add references or attachments to that markup for reference. You do want to make sure that anything that you want to attach to the markup is already loaded to the cloud. Okay? So you can link in files that have already been uploaded to the cloud to add as an attachment or reference. When you're looking at files that have markups, you'll notice here in BIM 360 docs, we have a little cloud with a pencil. If it is black, we know that we have some markups. If not, then there's no markups in that particular file. In Autodesk docs, they've actually broken it up into two different categories, private and published. So here you can see there are no private markups, but there are a couple of published markups. When you're done with the markup, you can delete that markup. Now, if you're in BIM 360 docs, if it's a private markup, it can be deleted. However, if it has been published, you can only archive it, and it becomes a record of the project. However, with BIM 360 docs, you can delete published and unpublished. All right, let's take a look at comparing. Switch back over here again. I'm sorry. I guess I didn't update that slide. The redlining. So let's take a look at redlining. So here I've got a red line that I've created. You can see I can go in and edit it. There's my attachment. It's private. I could make it publish it if I wanted to. I could also come over to my markup tab here, and I could change that to published as well. And then if I wanted to delete it, I have the delete option here as well as here. Once I switch that to published in BIM 360 docs, this would change to archive. Okay, so let's put in a new cloud here. Let's say we want to put in, what we got here? Let's just put a call out in. Let us put a call out here. Pretty big. You'll see over here we have line thicknesses. We can adjust that line thickness. We can also do fills. This one, since I already started it, I'll need to go back and change that. So let's do it here. You can change that line thickness beforehand. You can change the text and the line thickness and the colors on the fly as well. Let's put, let's say check work offset. Okay, we can adjust this around. If we want to wrap it, so forth. We can move this however we need. If we move it in certain positions, that arrow will reconnect depending on where we adjust that.
Okay, well, thanks, Alice, for the presentation. Thank you for all for attending. If you think of questions later, you can simply reply to that confirmation or reminder email you received from GoToWebinar, and we can get those to Alice or your sales rep to get your questions answered. Once again, you will receive an email tomorrow with a link for the recording of today's presentation, and we'll go ahead and wrap things up for today. But thanks everyone for attending, and have a great day, everybody.